Hello, welcome back to Car Design Dialogues. And after that seamless end to the last conversation, we move into the end of the day wrap up. Welcome back to the team, Abel, Mike, Chris. I suppose we're just going to chat through some of the highlights from today. Maybe I'll start with you, Abel. Fascinating session with Autodesk, but maybe you saw some other stuff during the day that piqued your interest.
Yeah, I thought some of the panel sessions, which had a lot of speakers in it, were really managed well from our end. I thought it was a challenge to get through, allowing them all of them to have a voice, which was great. And I'm going to pass on to
Mike. I was going to say, as you choke to death, Abel, let's move on to Mike while you die quietly.
Yeah, I'm totally fine. Yeah, it was a pretty hectic day, pretty busy schedule, and lots of amazing speakers. So thank you for everyone that came and chatted to us. It was an absolute pleasure. One of my highlights actually was just going inside the studio with Karma Automotive. I felt so lucky to be on that call with David and Jack. It was really amazing. We had just a really nice conversation about what goes on behind doors there, and they had the beautiful SC2 behind them as well as a backdrop. And they mentioned a few things that are coming up later on in the year for Karma, so stay tuned for those. But that was a fantastic session.
It was.
And really lovely to get inside the studio.
Nice to see the car in the background. Also, interesting points on the future of the sports car, which I think becoming a more experiential thing rather than competing on pure performance. Chris, you had some really fascinating session, particularly the interiors one.
That was clearly a highlight. But I mean, I think for me, the day kind of did what it said on the tin. Really, kind of starting with electrifying an icon. Really taking the classic views, the legacy OEMs, as Ralph put it, and showing where things are changing. Obviously, electrification, sustainability driving a lot of that, but not only, because these are rich histories and obviously very popular items, which and they design teams are moving with the times, and I think we saw a lot of that shift kind of moving with it, which was really fascinating. And in the interiors session, we spent quite a lot of time talking about data and the sources and obviously whether you're pulling that real time from a vehicle and letting that inform the user experience, or obviously running the clinics and taking input from other places. But I mean, the point which I'm sure resonated for many on that panel and listening was the importance of intuition in that. Mike and James might laugh because as editors and journalists, we probably talk about the same thing.
Yes.
When you look at the analytics of who's reading what, and then you say, okay, but sometimes you just know what a good story is. And that's what you have to go on. And obviously for designers, you could see them doing that, whether that's in the materials choices, and looking at in the kind of package and also the screens. So it's not always about what people are doing now. It's about where they're going, which is obviously very appropriate for the automotive industry, and especially for design. And then there we saw, as usual, the kind of screen tensions play out, but then clearly with the Wagoneer, a great example of how it can be done elegantly, how you can put more screens in but still perhaps give a space for calm and reflect the use of each of those and tell the story.
I wonder, Chris, if you saw right at the end of that session, it was really interesting, and there was so many comments coming in from the audience, so everyone was really engaged, which was great. But one of the things that came in at the end was Vince mentioned that the interior with the 7 screens, I think it was, could be seen as quite a lot, quite an overload. But they sort of balance that out slightly with the materials and making things warm.
Yeah.
But there was this idea, I think someone put in the chat at the end, that with these zones in cars and in interiors, and especially with screens in each of these zones as well, you're perhaps encroaching on what would otherwise be family time inside the car, right? I wonder if you saw that and if you had any thoughts on it.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think that the kind of designing for the family came up in a couple of cars as it is. It is an important important topic. And again, you could look at it in a few ways, right? I mean, and then we can probably get into the debate of what family time is and should look like in the 21st century. And in
Oh
a
yes,
car.
that's a whole can of worms. If you like talk about
There
family
are
and screens,
certainly moments in a car journey where I imagine having those screens is the perfect solution for a family. But yeah, I mean, likewise, I think probably what we see, that tendency to be able to hide aspects of UX, or at least kind of, we're not in use to have them fade into the background, because perhaps, in a journey for a family, there are moments when counting the different states' license plates or whatever it is that a family, how you engage is still important. And it's not just about kind of what you can stream on the screen. But I think Vince did make the good point about, balancing those zones and thinking about the interactivity on it, because that is a fact of our world, and I'm sure, James, as you well know, and Abel, a fact of family life as well. Sometimes they need to exist in somewhat different zones.
Oh yes,
especially after
yes.
2 years of lockdown.
And I think everyone was praying for different zones after 2 years of lockdown. No, fascinating stuff. I was also intrigued by the fact that the UX seemed to bleed into absolutely every single discussion we had, and I mean, a very very minor point, I suppose, at a major point at the same time, that it really is kind of all encompassing, and I think designers at every level are having to think about that.
What did Pontus call it? I mean, I'll lose the metaphor, but there was the ring, and then which is the interior, and the diamond is the UX.
That's right.
I think car designers were Tiffany's at that moment.
There was one other thing that I thought of as well. Throughout the day, UX was pointed out and highlighted quite a lot. And we did speak about the zones in the Interior Futures session as well. But one of the things that perhaps we didn't mention too much today was this idea of space inside the interior. And I thought of you, Abe, like when we design, when companies are designing these cars and we get inside, you need a big boot for your golf clubs, and that didn't come up much. But yes,
I suppose it did come up somewhat in the very first session, which was the all powerful frunk from the F-150 Lightning. Yes, the 2 sets of golf clubs can go in there, or a hell of a lot of beer.
And a lot of power tools.
A hell of a lot of power tools.
I thought what was interesting is the amount of OEMs we had speaking, because I don't know, of all the design events we've done or conversations in one day, to have the likes of Stellantis, Lincoln, Ford, GAC, Hyundai, Nissan, Volvo, Karma.
And we sit here just listing car companies. It's absolutely fascinating discussion.
That many conversations.
No.
It was quite amazing that we got a nice spread of the world. In North America, but they had a link to North America. There were studios based there.
Absolutely.
It speaks to the relevance of again, why do we do this event? Why are we talking about car design in North America now and on a virtual platform? I mean, I think the amount of change which is happening, which we're kind of highlighting here, both in electrification, which is coming in now, but also, trying to imagine what users need in 10 years time, and so different already from 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
I think every brand in North America and globally, as some of the brands we've talked about are in the US kind of to serve other markets, as from a design point of view, like GAC, and others kind of straddle multiple, like Lincoln. But they're all wrestling with the same topics, and that's the whole reason we're here. And so the audience, thank you for engaging and putting those comments and questions in, because that's really what this is all about.
Wonderful. No, absolutely. And there's another day to come. Actually, day 2. Tomorrow we're gonna explore a lot more of the similar themes. We're going to look at the future of pickups. That is another huge they're a huge junction, a very very physical manifestation of the kind of the crossroads or the fork in the road that many OEMs are facing. We're going to look at HMI in a very very detailed session with Epic Games and their Unreal Engine design competition, HMI design competition. With Henrik Fisker going to be talking about the ocean. Yes, it's another sort of packed day where we're going to explore, many of the themes that were kind of touched upon today.
And we're going to fill in some of those missing gaps with some of those car makers.
Yes.
So the ones that were missing probably going to be on tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, Ram, Chevrolet,
Yeah.
GM. So yeah, lots to come.
Lots to come, indeed.
All those sessions are ready. If you missed anything, you can already get them on the platform. So if you just go back to you see the calendar and click at any session in the schedule, anything that's come already has a link. So you can go back and watch anything that you missed or anything you want to pick back up. We'll have that content on the CDN website next week. But in the meantime, it's all at your disposal.
Good stuff. Okay, well, until tomorrow, guys. Thanks very much, Chris, Abel, Mike, and thanks to myself, James McLaughlin. And hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow in the opening session.
Have a good night.
Like.